We're just Spit-Ballin.
Hello again, we are the Genx Gingers. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Brian.
And we're here to talk today about modern society versus conventional wisdom on a couple of different bullet points. One is owning a home. So for a little bit of background on me, I grew up in one home my entire childhood. After college, I lived in an apartment for about a year and a half. And then since then, I've been in 4 different homes, 3 of which I've owned. One was a rental.
A different thing for me is I grew up in 2 homes. Had a divorce happen to my parents at age 7. We left the family home and went to the family townhome. So although it was townhouse style, it was really the house that I grew up in. Since then, because the field I was in took me gallivanting around the country, I was never a home owner. I was always an apartment renter until now. Now I am a home renter and have been in that home for 4 years with my wife.
So it used to be, the American dream. You buy a starter house, start your family, and then either that becomes your family home or you eventually move to a bigger house. But the goal was always to own a home. But
financial stability was always related to owning that house.
yeah.
You were hitting it big financially, even if it was just in terms of stability. If you were that homeowner, that's just not the case any longer.
Yeah, and I remember even in high school in the early 90s, we would hear about California, about how the price of a home in California just skyrocketed. Every year it was up 20%. And I'll tell you, when I bought my house in 1998, everybody at work, people who I talked to, they said, oh, it's guaranteed. It's going up 10% a year. So you can own your home for a couple of years, and then you can borrow money against the accumulated value. You're not paying it off, but because your home value is higher, it gave you free money.
It adjusted the scales in your direction. That is for sure. A house that I resided in as I was working my way through the sports profession. It's interesting because I currently live in what you would consider, in my early 40s now, mid 40s at this point, in what I would consider the starter home. Although we are renting it, this is what we would consider the starter home. And somebody would say to me, you should have did this 20 years ago. Well, I couldn't do it 20 years ago. 20 years ago I was chasing a career. And that took me from Michigan to Myrtle Beach to Memphis. If it started with an M, I was there. It took for me all over the place. And finally I got out of that profession. But the profession I'm in now is just, it's just as cutthroat. And in 5 years, I've had 3 jobs. I mean, it's just through a company that closed, just about to close completely in Sears Holdings, to a company that got bought out because our bank account literally had $0 in it during a payroll week. So, because of that's the way of the world. This the ownership thing, as much as I'd like to own a home, it doesn't define me because I'm going against conventional wisdom. I'm actually going with modern wisdom. Modern wisdom is get everything else in order and then settle down, because conventional wisdom blew up in our faces in 2008 when the housing industry collapsed.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, I bought my house in 1998, it was $180,000. And because of the, everything that I heard, the house price, the value of the home keeps rising. I looked at my options, and I settled on what's called a 7-1 ARM, or a 7-year balloon, where you make a minimum payment for 7 years, and then you have to pay off the entire remainder of the bill, which is going to be higher because interest is accruing and you're just paying minimum amount. But they always said, hey, it doesn't matter, because after 7 years you refinance, and because the home value keeps increasing at a higher rate than the interest, you won't have to put any more money down for your loan. Well, I was at 7 3/8% interest.
Wow.
When I started in 1998.
Compared to now, that's twice as high is what it is now.
And I renegotiated my loan multiple times, but each time it was kicking the can down the road. Now, in the end, I got a 15-year loan, closer to 5%.
Fixed,
yes. But I only stayed in the house for another 3 or 4 years after that. And then I took so I bought it at 170, sold it at 235. So I took all of the quote-unquote profit from that, put it towards my next house purchase, which I stayed in that house for almost 3 years.
That's the one that I would know as the Wolf House.
The Wolf House.
Okay.
Yes. So we were only in.
Sorry, we actually do know each other. So
I was only in that house for 2 years when the financial crisis of 2008 hit, and it started in the home mortgage industry. So here I was in a 30-year mortgage, looking at $2,300 every single month for the next 30 years. And up and down the street from me, homes were foreclosed and people were buying them up half price.
Short sales. I remember the one time I visited, the number of short sale homes that were, or foreclosed homes that were that even in the simple trip down to Dairy Queen, that number of houses that were foreclosed upon or marked as in a short sale was incredible. Now, of course, it was in the market that has the auto industry, so that was an equally bad time. It was a double whammy, if you will, because that affected the automobile industry pretty badly also.
Yeah. I guess you could say, if you don't own your home, why are you interested in owning your car? Right? If you're not the person who wants to own their own home, why would you care about owning your own car? I guess that kind of goes hand in hand.
Well, as luck should have it, I am that person. I rent my home, but I own my car.
And you've done that multiple times.
I've
right?
only bought new. I only buy new cars. I've bought a beautiful one that you drove till the governor kicked in. Beautiful Pontiac Grand Am GT, navy blue, 2-door, tan interior, gorgeous car. Traded it in after it was paid off, 2004, for a Saturn Vue. Wrecked the black one. Lady pulled out in front of me. Owned it for 3 weeks. Had the rental for 6 weeks. As soon as that all wrapped up, bought another one. It was electric blue. Loved that car. 2008. The gas prices were $4.39 a gallon. And I said, I've got to get a fuel-efficient car. So I bought a Kia Spectra. And people are like, why would you go from an SUV to a Kia Spectra? I was like, okay, It's not expensive. It gets great gas mileage. And the interior is soft. The Chrysler interior little cars were like cement. General Motors little car interiors were like sandpaper. And whatever adjective would line up with cement and sandpaper, that was Ford's interior little cars. So none of the American cars had nice, soft interiors. So I got a Kia Spectra and got 39-40 miles to the gallon and a conventional engine. But because I didn't own anything else, I wanted to own my cars. Yes, there's a little value in them. If something were to happen and I needed $5,000, if I wanted to invest in something or become a partner in this business or that business, or health crisis popped up, then I would be able to turn that car. It had some liquidity. I would be able to turn that car into cash. But I wouldn't be riddled with the fact that I might not be able to sell that house. And if I remember correctly, I feel as though that's what affected you at the Wolf House. It was the location of it. We weren't sure how that was going to play out.
Yeah. Well, because I was looking at 30 years of very high monthly payments, and the auto industry was devastated by that '08 crisis, the recession. I said, I can't expect to have a job in the auto industry for the next 30 years, and nor would I want to have to work for the next 30 years. But so I made the hard decision of we're getting out of this mortgage. I was very fortunate to be able to sell the home to a family that was coming back from, they worked for GM. They had been stationed in Korea. They were just coming back. They had no furniture or anything, so we were able to sell everything in the house, separate transaction, and it's the only money we walked away from that house. All the money that I had put into it, the down payment, the repairs, improvements. I mean, we turned an empty storage building into a heated, insulated, pseudo apartment with a bathroom and everything, a shower.
There was talk. I remember there was talk of me returning to Michigan as I was exploring a new career, getting out of the sports profession, so I didn't have to be such a migrant.
Yeah.
There was talk, and I remember that. And you just put in the drywall and the electricity and the bathroom, and I was like, Oh yes, I remember that well.
But so we got out of that house, lost $76,000, gone, and so we had to rebuild our bank account, and so we got a very modest rental house near where I worked. It was only like 3 miles from the office, but it was only $1,200 a month, and so a much better financial monthly outlay.
You had flexibility at that point also. Yeah. If the industry upped and crashed, you had flexibility. And the thing is too for you is when you were at the Wolf House, you were already a family man. I think both of your children were around at that point, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
They were both born before we left that house.
So that even complicated your matters. It wasn't just you. It's one thing, like for me at that point in time, it was just me. Mm-hmm. Which is why I don't need to own a home, but I would like to own a car. Oh, another reason why I like to own a car is because the car makers make it desirable for you to own this vehicle by giving you a warranty that covers just about everything. Just about. Not tire, not the wears and tears, not tires, brakes, windshield wipers, that sort of thing. But with the new car, I don't have to pay for repairs. I remember in the Grand Am, right after I bought it, it was recalled because the fancy 6-speaker stereo system in it started to fail. So it was recalled, and I took it in and didn't pay a dime for it. My current car, a Jeep, ironically, is in the process of, the company knows that there's transmission issues, and they've offered to fix it, but they have to dig in now and to replace valves in the transmission. So, but again, I won't pay anything for that. I won't pay a dime for it. Even if you own a home, you no such luck. I mean,
Yeah.
if the sink breaks, you have to pay to fix it. There's no such warranty on owning a home. And I think especially millennials, they're looking very much at the bottom line. They're looking at, what is this going to do to me now? Whereas our generation, Generation X, used to look at what is going to happen to us down the road. These kids look what's going to happen to us now, which is why they don't get married until they're in their 30s, which is why some of them aren't even having kids, which is why they still live in their parents' basement. I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking that at all. But that's where the modern society has really trumped conventional wisdom. What's going to happen to me now? Not you. Even in all of your examples, you were worried about what's going to happen to you at retirement age.
Yeah.
That's where the conventional wisdom is. It just doesn't really exist anymore. And especially my dad, it blows his mind that people think that way.
Well, your dad worked at the same place for decades. Your mom worked at the same place for decades.
My mom
right?
worked at the same place her whole life. She
Yep.
did 30 and out. My dad lost his job, bounced around a little bit, and a couple years later got another job that lasted 18 more years. So you're absolutely right. He had 2 jobs basically that lasted 30 years.
My dad worked at the same place his entire career. My mom worked at Las Vegas Bunny Ranch, as you know. No. But, I mean, hers, she worked for a decade as a school teacher, was gone for 20 years, and came back as a school teacher in that same
building.
school district. Yep. It's unheard of now. So the idea of planting roots for your home is absurd when you can't plant roots in your career, right? If you have the assurance of the conventional wisdom, you get yourself a job and you're there for life, you owe your loyalty to the company, then you feel very comfortable in sinking those roots in and buying a house in that neighborhood.
I think one of the things that really started the change in philosophy is when pensions went away. Most people don't have access to a pension any longer. And that's what I've had to explain to my dad. Yeah, although I've had 3 jobs in 5 years, I have a 401k. So it doesn't matter where I'm working, it's getting contributed to. So he would occasionally say, well, what do you have to show for this? Well, it's not... I have career advancement. I've completely remodeled my career. I'm a sport management major and a human resources professional. Now, at some point in time, I'm going to have paper. I'm going to have a degree to back that human resources thing because I like it and I'm pretty good at it. And who knows? When that happens, I've got 20 working years left. Who knows? At that point in time, maybe I could be an HR professional for a sports team. Take the 2 degrees and mesh them together. That's not out of the realm of possibilities because these giant corporations have human resources departments because they have hundreds of employees. Not just the players that you see on TV. They have hundreds of employees. Sometimes thousands of employees if you consider the game day people. Mm-hmm. Ford Field, for example, I mean, it's a 65,000 seat stadium. But the amount of people it takes to run that place on a Sunday, you would never realize what was going on behind the scenes. It could be thousands of people. So that's why I say these corporations have to have human resources people as well. And so kind of experiencing that right now. 50 years ago, I wouldn't have to worry that my current company, and this is a fact, this is an actual, as I was telling you the other day, this is actually happening. I started with them in January, and I will leave them nameless because I don't want to, in case when people do hear this, I don't want them to say that I'm beating up the company, because I'm not. I've made great friends there, but I started there in January after my company was purchased by another company, and they brought in their own people. It just happens that way. So there's only a few people left from the original company because they have very specific skill sets, like they're IT guys or something like that. They know how to run the network that's in that facility. So you can't bring in your own people for that. There'd be a much longer learning curve. The current company I'm in, we started bouncing checks in July. That's never fun. That's always scary. The first check we bounced was $1,000, and it was related to the operating systems it takes to run this business. And we started exploring, and we realized that the company was losing lots of money, and they just brought in 3-4 weeks ago. We just brought in a new president of the company, who sat me down face to face, just her and I, and said, "Here's the deal. I don't think the human resources team needs 3 people." Excuse me. And I've been told to trim the fat. Human resources does not produce revenue. You should probably look for another job. That would not have happened 50 years ago, because the company would have been stable. They wouldn't have gotten themselves into a situation where they are out of their league financially. Now, I'm sure somebody would say to me, "So you're telling me that in the 60s companies didn't go under?" Yes, they did. But they were much more likely to stay in their means. And it wasn't about revenue. It was about, at that point in time, it was more about the employee as well. It's not about the employee at all. That's another conventional wisdom that's out the window. Modern society is it's about the financial viability of the company. So here I am again, forced to do the exact same thing. Makes it look like I'm not doing something right. But when the president of the company says, your department doesn't produce revenue, your supervisor makes everybody's jobs too difficult, I don't think you need 3 people, you should look for another job, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? What am I going to say?
Yeah.
That's modern society right there. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and that's why to root yourself in a house, if you wait for a downturn to decide you want to move, who's going to want to move in during a downturn?
Exactly.
Right? You're in the same boat as everybody else, who they're either in a holding pattern saying, I don't want to make any commitments now during this period, or they're in a position where they want to sell off. Mm-hmm. So you're competing with a lot of other sellers and not many buyers, and that makes the value of the home go very low. And I guess that's when we rented the house between 2009 and 2011, it really changed my perception of people who rent, because I was able to finally put myself in their shoes. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I've got this, I sign a 1-year lease, but that's it. If I walk away from this place, the worst they can do is hound me for the balance of a 1-year contract, but I'm free to move. Now, what we decided we didn't like was the house was very small and an open floor plan, so you felt like you were on top of each other. Nobody had their own individual spaces they could retire to, so we kind of felt like we were all huddled in one room, just a little bit claustrophobic. So we realized we really did appreciate the larger amount of space. The Wolf House was a huge house. No, we didn't need that big, but we knew when we looked for a house again, we knew we wanted segmented areas that you could kind of get away from each other.
The bathroom, the main guest bathroom in the Wolf House, was possibly the nicest bathroom I've ever seen. I'm being serious. It might have been one of the nicest bathrooms I've ever seen. And if I remember correctly about that, the person that you bought that house from, he was in construction, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
So he really knew what he was doing when he would put rooms together and get them organized and get everything mapped out correctly. To take my rental one step farther. So we are through 4 years of a 1-year contract. So we really can do whatever we need to do at this point. There's an added caveat to my current rental. We are renting our house from a friend. We are renting a house from somebody that the two speakers here went to high school with. And it was just an odd coincidence. So I am sort of helping my community. He's just a guy. He formed an LLC to fit what he does, but he's just a guy. You know, we're not dealing with
Faceless corporation.
Exactly.
Like that.
We're not dealing with trying to think of one real estate company, Berkshire Hathaway. We're not dealing with them. We're dealing with a guy. And that guy I've known since 1988, 1986, you know.
Yeah.
So we are helping, you know, the modern society says buy local. Well, I'm renting local. So in a way, we're helping that as well. And it's interesting because my spouse, my wife, has achieved teaching tenure. So she would have to be a total moron to lose her job. And that's not who she is. You know, she gets frustrated with bosses and policies and No Child Left Behind and everything any other teacher deals with. But she's a tenure tracked. She has obtained her tenure. So she would have to break a serious human resources rule to lose her job. And that's just not going to happen. So one of the two of us has achieved what conventional wisdom is searching for. So it's interesting because we're not both there. I think if we were both there, we probably would look into buying. At the beginning of our discussion today, I mentioned that my parents divorced when I was 7 and I moved out of that house. That house was available earlier in the year to buy. And so my wife and I went as quickly as we could, Rocket Mortgage. Now you talk about a faceless corporation. That's an enormous corporation. But it is helping Cleveland and Detroit, two cities that need, that's where the majority of their, and Phoenix, but Phoenix doesn't need anybody's help. It's a desert mecca at the moment. So got on Rocket Mortgage, gave all the information. A person named John calls back. He says, here's what we need. We need your bank statements and we need your income and this and that. And thanks to modern technology, we were able to provide that data in a day or two. And we were immediately approved. He said we had the highest credit score of a couple that he's ever seen. Immediately approved. Here's your pre-authorization letter. Here's $150,000. That was before it was all done. Mm-hmm. That house was for sale for $142,000. I was like, oh, here we go. I'm gonna get my childhood home back. How awesome would this be? The owner put it on the market on a Monday. We were scheduled to see it Thursday evening. So the better part of 4 days later. Thursday morning, she accepted the first offer from Monday night. So we never even got a chance. We have seen it. The owner was like the owner of the Wolf House. She was very good at remodeling, modernizing, backsplashes, modern colors, technology, spacing, things like that. And I saw that house, and it was freaking gorgeous. I can remember it with an orange kitchen. I can remember having a blue bedroom. And I'm not to say that those things don't exist anymore, but they were state of the art in their day, 1979,
Yeah.
you know. So, but it didn't look that way anymore. It looked like the house was just built. And I was super excited about it, and I never got a chance to see it. And I feel like if I could have gotten in front of the owner of that house and said, I grew up in this house, please accept my offer, she probably would have said yes.
Mm-hmm.
But we never got the chance.
Yeah.
Missed it by a few hours.
Well, it's encouraging that in the Shenango Valley, houses are able to be sold so quickly.
That's because it was so updated, and it's location for sure. Even in an area that has struggled to recover from 2 recessions, it's location. I have been called a snob, jokingly so, by my dad's girlfriend of almost 20 years, because I said there's only certain areas I would live in the Shenango Valley, and in our hometown there's only certain areas I would live, and I named those areas, and she said, why? And I said, 2 things need to happen. I need to want to die in this house, or I need to want to be able to resell this house. One of the 2. I said, so there's only certain places I would be looking. She said, you're such a snob. And she was half serious. She was half joking. I mean, I've known her for many years, so I was not offended by that. But I would think that falls more into conventional wisdom. I either need to want to die here, or I need to want to be able to sell it.
Yeah.
I can't play that game somewhere in the middle. Well, we might snowbird, or we might downsize, and no. Conventional wisdom says you want to spend the rest of your life here, or you need to be able to sell it and get out of it as soon as you choose.
Yeah.
So,
well, you mentioned the location, and I think I'm fascinated by, cars. We talked about cars earlier, and I showed you the charts that I made for used cars.
it was an impressive chart.
Investigating, looking at different models, and a car, you can punch in all the specs on the car, and Kelley Blue Book, or there's a couple of different sites that tell you the value of
Consumer
your
Reports,
car.
Kelley Blue Book, yeah.
Yes. But you can't do that with a house.
You cannot.
You can't just say this many bedrooms, this many square feet. That should be all you need.
It really should be. You should be able to say 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, 1,800 square feet, separate entrance to the basement. All of those things. Like, it should be like adding on cruise control.
Yep.
Which is standard everywhere now. So you wouldn't add cruise control anymore.
But it's one thing if location is affecting it, because you can't take it with you. It's the reason why it's so important that you make a wise decision on where you want to live, and why if you lose your job and if you've got to move, it's such a big deal. But it's irrational, the prices since the not even just since the recession. It led to the recession. Home values increasing 10% and up every year. There's no rational explanation for that. So, to what really put it in perspective for me was in 2000. I think it was 2006. We put our house in Plymouth up for sale. So I told you. We bought it at $170, sold it at $235. Mm-hmm. That house it was 1,700 square feet, and it had a postage stamp yard, small yard in a subdivision. Fast forward it was the last month of 2010. So
on a cul-de-sac, though.
On a cul-de-sac, but 2011. For $10,000 more, we went from 1,700 square feet to 3,000 square feet. We went from a postage stamp suburban yard to 5 acres with an in-ground swimming pool for $10,000 more dollars. It's irrational.
It is very irrational, and because Plymouth was this nice, yuppie town where there were younger people, and there was these planned urban developments, and that's exactly what that house was. Whereas the Wolf House was literally in God's country. I mean, it was close to a town, but I don't think I could see a neighbor from your house.
No. The one thing you would
in any
hear,
direction.
Somebody played the bagpipes in a nearby house, and I always thought it was cool that that's the only noise pollution that was out there. It wasn't somebody cranking music. It was they were making their own music. I still wanted them to shut up, but at least it was something, it wasn't the typical urban type noise pollution.
Very true. In one of the other subjects we wanted to hit on today was conventional wisdom on college degrees. And you know what? This sort of all plays together, because when we were kids, when we were in our early teens and late teens, and we were getting ready to go to college, 1992, we were both off into the college world. Everybody said college, 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 college. That was still conventional wisdom, because the recession of the 70s and 80s forced our parents, to look at things differently. So my parents were not college educated. Your parents were college educated. But still, even my parents, who were blue collar people, were, you know what? You got to do better than us. You can't have to deal with this. Life is not the same as it used to be. You got to go to college. See, that's interesting, that philosophy, conventional wisdom was you graduate and you go to the factory. Mm-hmm. But even as far back as 1992, that conventional wisdom was out the window.
Yeah.
And it was a new modern look on things. You fast forward to now, 26 years later, and college is no longer what you hear, because there are trade schools galore. Mm-hmm. There's electronics trades, aviation trades. There's an aviation school in the parking lot of my employer. So there's aviation schools, there's electronic schools, there's welding schools, trade schools that offer bona fide skills and associate's degrees. It's gone back to, it's no longer college. It's you spend 10 or 12 months, or 18 if you want an associate's degree, and you can do exactly what you want to do anywhere you want to do it.
Yeah.
Electricians are needed everywhere. Welders are needed everywhere. America has probably thousands of airports. So the aviation industry is alive and well.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned aviation school, because probably a year ago, I read an article about how this one of the airlines was coaching the local, I don't know if it was a community college or something, but they were directing them to update their curriculum for the airlines, because the airlines are getting all these people who come out of this school, and they're having to retrain them because they learned all the old stuff, and this airline was having to bring them up to speed. So this article said, look at what's happening here. It used to be the airlines would train their people. They would invest in their workers. We were talking about training earlier today.
It was about employees, not just revenue.
Yes.
For sure.
So the airlines would invest in these people, and the people would know exactly what the company wants them to know, because the company literally writes the book for the training. Now we have a third party I would say a disinterested third party training them. People are paying good money to that third party, and what they're getting is a second-rate education, whereas when the airlines were doing it, the airlines are footing the bill, and the airlines are paying the people while they're training on the job. But it seems like there's no such thing as apprentices anymore, where somebody learns the profession by being taken under somebody's wing. But these schools are, not all of them are for profit, but we've got a lot of these schools and pseudo universities popping up that from what I've heard, the rate of going to college has gone from used to be 6 to 8% of the population went to college 50 years ago. Now it's 45%. But how many are getting their degrees?
And I would be willing to surmise that number was higher earlier. I would be willing to bet that it went up and has come back down and maybe on the way back up. It was right around the time I met my wife. It was so about 2011. There were lawsuits against the company that operated Pittsburgh Art Institute. I forget the name of the corporation at this point in time, but the government was even after them because they were not providing an education worthy of the amount of debt that the students were obtaining. And so they were the company was forced to, I think, forgive some of that debt and let students out of contracts. Wouldn't force them to pay for some entire semester because the education was deemed substandard. That happened a lot. ITT Technical Institute closed completely. The entire system shut down. There were hundreds of campuses, physical campuses, as well as an online school, shut down completely because of that. ITT Technical Institute does not exist anymore because of that. So, there again, college starts to go back down. I don't really know if I need to go. Oh, but I've got these trade schools, trade. So, University of Phoenix is one of the nationwide ones. And again, I can't remember the name of the company that ran the art institutes, but they also owned Sloan Kettering and some of the other Brown University, I think, some of the other ones that are out there. But the community college system seems to be coming into vogue again, and that's a great thing because you can get your first 2 years in living at home, not getting much debt, and what it does is it teaches your mind about how I need to deal with college. So then you go. That's what my wife did. She went for her first actually three, but so the first 2 years credit-wise at Allegheny County Community College, which has 4 or 5 branches around Pittsburgh, and then she went off to Penn State. She still ended up with 3 degrees and an unthinkable amount of debt, but what I remind her is at least it got her to where she is now, tenured teacher, something that she never had before. So she's been able to pay a lot of that debt down at this, but that's also helped us steer clear of a home unless it was the ideal home. But college does tie the way we currently view things in terms of educating our young people ties into this change in philosophy as well.
Yes. College debt, I believe, is still the only thing that you can't have expunged if you go into bankruptcy.
Correct. You can even expunge medical stuff now.
So here these kids are, they're told from the time they get into first grade You know, they're conditioned to think, okay, after your senior year, you got to go to college. What college are you going to go to? What are you going to go for? Or you don't know what you want to do? Well, go anyways and see if you can figure it out.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh my
Go
goodness.
anyways and see if you can figure it out.
And so it's you are shackling those kids with financial burdens that you know, they've got no job while they're going to college. If they've got a job, it's not enough to cover the college. And it's
life
just stressing them out. Oh my goodness.
College and life, yeah. So they end up living with their parents or live with, you know, getting together with several friends, and you know that has mixed levels of success at that point. But it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. That would be like saying to a person with a peanut allergy, "Oh, you're not sure if peanuts are in there? Eat it anyways."
Yeah.
That would have the same effect. It would be life altering. It would have the same effect.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I went to college. My parents paid for all their kids to go to college, and they reminded me often that my college was the most expensive that they had to pay for.
But you were the youngest of the three,
But,
so
yeah, so
you were the last one.
Later in time, and that's another thing. The price of college has risen astronomically,
thousands of %,
along with the price of housing. Now, what does housing, or what does buying a house and buying a graduate education, what do they have to do with each other? You can get loans for both of them. Mm-hmm. And I think if you couldn't do it with a loan, if you had to pay cash, fewer people would be willing to pay even half of what the tuition is today.
Way fewer. Uncle Sam wants his people educated, and Uncle Sam is going to give them the money to become educated. And then eventually Uncle Sam's going to want that money back.
Wants his money back.
But it's just it's not viable in a lot of cases.
But when it's other people's money, it's interesting how the price just keeps going up, because there's no... It's relatively painless to sign a contract.
It is.
If you are not having to take money out of your bank for each term that you put your kid into college, that you're just kicking the can down the road.
Yep.
But anyway, so I benefited from my college degree, but Wendy and I have talked about, you know, maybe our kids aren't going to go to college. Mm-hmm. Certainly, if you're interested in any of the STEM fields, science and math,
right,
then it's absolutely appropriate, because what job would you get in those fields without a degree? But other than that, the only thing I can think of is an MBA if you wanted to work in the business world, or even the business side of a small company. They want to see an MBA. But other than that, really, I don't know that it's necessary outside of those particular disciplines, because everything else, you learn it on the job.
Right. And that on-the-job training thing is, there's a small groundswell. I guess that's a bit of an oxymoron, but there's a small amount of returning to let's train them ourselves. Let's on the job. Let's hire some trainers, so we can do the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's a growing field in my profession. The HR field is training and development. You're starting to see that return to some companies, because it gives those companies, also gives them good public perception and goodwill to know that you have a training and development. Oh, so you don't have to log onto a computer. You don't have to deal with somebody overseas. You know, oh, you deal with this right here. So some of those companies, and they publicize it. When Sprint brought many of their call center jobs back to the U.S., mm-hmm. you saw that all over their ads. all over their ads, and that I think Sprint has benefited from that. So there's something to be said for that as well. The training and development of people, like you were saying. I benefited from the fact that my parents paid for the majority of my college. I was an RA one year, so my room and board was covered for an entire year. And I put a little bit of money. I would say if college costs, I know people are going to find this absurd, 26 years later, but if my 4.5 years, because I saved my internship credits for a ninth semester. So I did live on campus during that semester. But if you add all of that up, it might have totaled $50,000. That same college now would probably be $100,000 if you did the same thing. And I'm proud my university has grown a lot over the years. But the price of that particular college, small private, has gone up a lot. So they've almost priced themselves out of some people's pocketbooks. But then there are still those who are like, I'll worry about this later. 100,000, where do I sign? You're right, it's easy to sign. Where do I do that?
Yeah. Yeah, my niece went to college for physical therapy. $32,000 per year.
That's a great field, but that is a very, very high price tag.
And they try to sell it as how can you put a price on your child's education, right? They try to make it an emotional plea that, well, they've got to go to college. I mean, this is the modern era. They've got to. And I think once we hit a tipping point, it will, the stigma of not having a college education is going to be completely gone. And it might even go the other way, that people who go to college are going to be looked at as, oh, you're afraid to join the real world, so you wanted to pay for another 4 or 5 years to stay sheltered from society.
That's happening.
Yes.
That is actually happening. In you see it, and again, not to rip on the millennials, but you see that happen. That's happening now. You are a resource stealer because you went to college. You are harming the government and financial side of things by taking hundreds of thousands of dollars that you'll never repay. So that is already happening. It's unfortunate, but
yeah. Hey, I want to revisit cars again, because you talked about buying new, having the warranty and everything. As I showed you the chart that I made, not the chart, the list, I have bought 27 cars since 1990.
And I have purchased. You informed me that I have to count both Saturns, even though I only owned the black one for 3 weeks, because it was totaled. Somebody pulled out in front of me, making a left onto a highway, and I was traveling 50 miles an hour, and I T-boned her. That car broke into 100 pieces, but I came out with the worst thing I had was a bruise on my leg because it was resting against the handrest when I made contact. So you've told me I had to count both Saturns. So Grand Am, Saturn, Spectra, Cherokee. That's 5. I was given a Corsica. So I've had 6 cars, but I've only purchased 5 cars since 1995-ish.
Yeah. So on the one hand, people say, "Oh, you buy used, then you don't pay that high price of a new car just for the privilege of a new car." But I can speak from vast experience that unless you turn your own wrenches, it is so expensive to repair older cars that it is literally the same price as buying a new car, leasing. in many respects. It's the same price as leasing, except you've got the added inconvenience of having to get a broken car to a shop and then getting it back. And what do you drive in the meantime? Now, in our family, we've always got more cars than drivers, so we have the ability to, send this car to the shop and just activate the license plate on another car.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody has that that convenience.
Two
that
cars,
ability.
two drivers in our house.
So that's another one where buying used, the older it is, the more attention that car is going to require. And the only car we've ever bought brand new, it was an '05 minivan. We've put $1,500 into repairs in that vehicle this year. So $1,500, that's half a year of lease payments.
Right.
So there is a price that you pay for the money you save on a used car.
I'll give you a perfect example, because I didn't know that you would. We don't script out what we're going to do, so I had no idea that you were going to say that. But I can tell you that I put some money into the Corsica, but it was a 1988 in 1996, so it was already 8 years old. I never put a dime into the Grand Am, not a single solitary dime, and I traded it in before it was. I wanted an SUV. Americans love their SUVs, and in 2004, I was one of those Americans. So I wanted to step up to an SUV. Never put a dime into that Saturn Vue, not a dime. 122,000 miles. I said to my girlfriend at the time, I said, the moment it cost me $50 to fill up a gas tank, I'm getting rid of this car and I'm going to gas efficient. Filled it up one day, because I typically try to keep it full. I typically fill it up. I don't try to keep it full, but I typically fill it up when it's needed. $51, that car was gone 2 days later.
Wow.
Nothing against that Saturn Vue. It had 122,000 miles on it. I have put enough miles on these cars to drive to the moon and back like 5 times. I probably have joined the Million Mile Club at this point. So that car was gone 2 days later. Kia Spectra. Oh, Kias, they're garbage. Once Hyundai bought Kia, the quality of Kias went up quickly. I put in an oxygen sensor in that car. That was it. $300.
Wow. And you probably didn't even have to do that. If you didn't mind looking at the check engine light.
The check engine light was on, and occasionally it would hiccup. Occasionally. The oxygen mix got a little off, and occasionally it would hiccup. More so when I was getting ready to put it in park. I would get down to going real slow, and it would kick a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I am now on my 5th car. Again, I'm counting the two Saturns. I'm on my 6th car, and I've put a grand total, and again, not counting tires and brakes and windshield wipers and stuff, because those are musts. I've put a grand total of $300 into these 6 cars. And not counting the Corsa, because I did have to put money in that. Into these 4/5 new cars, $300. $300. That goes back to the year 2000. Yeah. 18 years I've put $300 into a car. The blue Saturn Vue, somebody backed into me in a putt or a recreation station. We used to hang out there as kids. I used to love to go there, and I would take out my aggression on the batting cages.
Yes.
And one day I was there, and I was getting ready to leave, and I had a note on my windshield, and it said, "I watched this red Thunderbird back into your car. Here's the license plate." I had a good Samaritan. They did not, and they never said who they were. So I took it to the police department, and I said, "Look at this." They got the Thunderbird person, and voila, the red paint was and the scratches were taken off of the Saturn, and I had golf clubs in there.
Uh-huh.
And when he hit me, it caused the golf clubs to shift. So I said to his insurance company, the scratches on all this plastic in here, you're fixing that also. And they did.
Oh my goodness.
They fixed the plastic on the inside of the hatch, the utility portion of it. It was so I didn't have to put a penny into those cars.
Wow. So you've paid $300
in 18 years.
I don't think it is at all overblowing it to say that I've spent at least $12,000 in repairs since 1990. Now, my first car was a 1980 Olds 98 Regency Brougham. I bought a single light bulb for that car. It's the only thing I ever had to repair on it. And that car had 120,000 miles on it when I bought it. Fast forward to 2014, I bought a 2002 Chrysler 300M Special Edition for $1,200. The exact same price that I paid for the Olds 98 was $1,200. I paid $1,200 for that Chrysler 300M Special Edition, and then I proceeded to spend $6,000 in repairs on that stupid car. I had it for about 3 years.
But you love 300s, though.
I just... and that's part of my problem, is that I do excessive preventive maintenance. I want it to run like the day it was new, so I repair things like door seals that are just, you hear the wind coming through. Things that I don't have to replace, I replace anyways. So that's my fault. But I'm passionate about cars. I'm in the auto industry, so I feel, it's one of my hobbies is paying to fix it.
And I said just this weekend, prior to this conversation, I said it to my wife and I said it to you. I said, you not having a new car is like me watching the 1997 World Series. I'm a sports guy with a professionally trained in sport management, jobs with major league teams, jobs with minor league teams. So it would be silly for me to... This year, when the Dodgers and Red Sox were playing in the World Series, and I can't stand the Red Sox, it would be silly for me to at least not participate in the viewership of that in any way. And I did. I did participate in it. There was a game that went 18 innings, and I made it till 2:30 in the morning and fell asleep.
Wow. Oh, my gosh.
So that would be... But you having a used car where you pay $1,200 and then spend $6,000, it doesn't... To me, it just doesn't make sense. To me, that... Conventional wisdom would say, and I know I keep bringing it back to that, but that is our subject. Conventional wisdom would say a man passionate about cars, working in the automobile industry, has the right to own a new car. The privilege, actually, to own a new car because of all of the other stuff that you mentioned. Now, the Blue Saturn Vue and the Kia Spectra were well out of warranty. The Spectra I had, I thought I was going to get a new car every 4 years. I went from 08 to 17. I went 9 years between cars.
Yeah.
That car had 173,000 miles on it when I sold it for $1,900.
Wow.
And the day I sold it, my wife cried because it was the only car she ever knew me that I had. And the person that I sold it to was ecstatic because she's like, I can't believe how nice this car is. It only has a few scratches. The tan interior, for some reason I like tan interiors. I had a tan interior in the Grand Am also. She said the tan interior, there's no holes, there's no tears, there's no burn marks. She was ecstatic. She was ecstatic. But those cars were well out of warranty. I had to figure out where the sweet spot was to get rid of that car so I didn't have to drop $6,000 into it. I got lucky on the Spectra. I absolutely got lucky. 9 years, 173,000 miles. Oxygen sensor. I count my blessings every day for that. Then the Blue Saturn was it was based on the gas price, because the gas was a mess at that point. You know, I guess I'm the kiss of death for car companies. Pontiac Grand Am doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Saturn Vue times 2. Saturn doesn't exist anymore. I hope Jeep is okay.
Yeah.
For more than one reason, sir. I hope Jeep is
Yeah.
okay after I made my first purchase into a 17 Cherokee. I hope Jeep does okay. I guess Kia's still going to be doing okay. So I think, and you had an Oldsmobile, doesn't exist.
Yeah. Two
And
Oldsmobile 98 Regencies.
Did you have a Saab at any point?
No.
Because that also doesn't exist. Plymouth, I don't think either one of us ever had a Plymouth.
Nope.
So, but anyways.
Yeah. Well, I think it's. I'm kind of fascinated that we've got multiple ways to buy. You could buy new, you can lease, you can buy used from an individual or from a dealership. And everybody chooses for themselves based on their, not just their situation, but their priorities. And it's nothing cookie cutter. You make the decision for yourself. But as car prices increase, you know, it's $30,000 is the typical price people are paying for cars. And as it goes up, I think it's going to give rise to more Ubers and Lyfts, and people are just going to completely get out of the market. And that's going to be a sad day, because I still love it that people are passionate about cars. They've got a color that they want, and they want to pick certain things for the interior and features.
Perfect example. What color car do I want? You know it. I've said it 100 times. What color car do I want?
Yeah, well, you've talked about that dark green.
I liked that.
Like.
What's the one that I said I want?
The orange.
I want an orange. I want
yeah.
an orange car.
Yeah.
That's right. So you're right. I mean, how many people say they want an orange car? Not many.
Not many.
And now it's harder to find. A lot of companies are going away from orange after going into orange and yellow and green and stuff like that. So who knows? Maybe I'll have another electric blue SUV. You mentioned the price. The only benefit to the rise in car prices is, for the most part, because the industry has leveled off, and GM, for example, because they're worldwide and have a heavy presence in China. They made $3 billion last quarter, which is pretty remarkable. But you can get very, very low financing or 0% financing. I got a discount, and thank you for that, and I got a rebate of. So when I bought that Cherokee Latitude, I almost forgot the name of it. When I got that Cherokee Latitude, it was just a smidge over $30,000. I got it for $25,000 and some change. So I was able to I was able to start off pretty good. But when you do that, you can't get 0% financing. They won't give both of those options to you. Boy, if they did, wow. So I said, I'm only going to buy this car if you can get me 2% interest. And 2% interest, people be like, there's no way I got it. 2.09%. Good credit. My credit card company was one of my credit card companies said he's been with us for 11 years. He's no risk. We'll give him 2.09%. So there are ways to keep those costs down. You buy when they're on sale. You buy when there's big rebates. You take advantage of discount options and things like that. So, but the size of vehicle that I'm looking at, which is, I guess, would be the mid-sized SUV, they are, if you want the features, if you want the lane departure, and you want the backup warning system, and you want blind spot monitoring, and all the things that are going into these cars, you are looking at $30,000, and just about all of them.
Yeah.
Except the Nissan Rogue, which and it's no wonder that's the highest selling one in the world. They have somehow figured out quality, price, and features, and the rest of the world knows it. So,
all right. Well, I think we have spent a lot of time on each one of these topics.
I didn't know what to expect with this one. 'Cause again, we always try to come in fresh, without. Neither one of us looked anything up during this conversation. We like to go off our minds because it's just conversational.
Yeah.
This went a lot better than I was expecting.
Yes, I was fearful getting into this. So, just kidding. All right, until next time, peace out.